That makes sense. Yeah, Shelby can kind of talk about what roles will be in, as much as she wanted to share.
I think at the breakfast meeting, we had turned the TV off.
got 7 o'clock straight up. Is he up? Is he good?
I'm here.
Oh, good. Hey, man,
Hey,
can you hear us okay?
yes, I can.
Okay, good deal. Well, great. I want to open up the May 24th meeting of the Planning and Zoning and welcome us all back to face-to-face meetings. I mentioned earlier, there's some of you I've never actually met in person. So, hello. I'm really glad that we're able to do this in person again. And we do have a quorum. It only requires 4, so we have enough of a quorum. We have one still missing and 2 out on vacation. So we're good to go legally. So let me open up the meeting tonight. The staff was kind enough to provide me with some instructions for visitors, although we only have 2 visitors out there. And you all know how to play the game pretty well. You've done this many times. So just remember to come up and give your name and address and all of that, and make sure your phones are on silence. So there's no need to go through this whole thing because there's only 2 of you. I do want to remind the commission that we probably should have been doing this all along. When a motion is made by a commissioner, they need to be made in an affirmative manner, when they're affirmative motion. And if those that are going to vote against it, they'll vote against it. So when you make a motion or something, you want to make the motion to approve, and then we'll go from there. Isn't that how you wanted it to run from now on? Okay. So just remember, when you make your motions, do it in an affirmative manner, and then the voting will be cast after that, okay? All right. So first up, approval of minutes, April 26th, 2021. Has everyone had an opportunity to review? If there are any changes, additions, or deletions, please state. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion. We have a motion on the floor to approve. Do I have a second? Second. A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Good deal. Thank you. No scheduled visitors or guests. No unfinished business. Under number 4, under new business, something that we have been wanting for a very long time. And that is an ordinance for the city of Ozark, Missouri, amending the municipal code of the city of Ozark, Missouri, chapter 405 zoning regulations to establish a dark sky design standard. I can't tell you how excited I am about that, Mr. Smith.
Yes, in front of you guys this evening. The ordinance is the same ordinance that was brought before you. That the last meeting we did not get any additional comments, and so there wasn't anything to update. So it is the same ordinance as you had seen before. We did remove all the highlights that had highlighted the prior changes from before. So staff is excited about the ordinance to bring that for you guys. And we are looking for some action tonight if the commission is willing to send this on to the Board of Aldermen for consideration. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys might have.
Excellent. I'll open this up for public. Did anyone want to speak to dark sky while you were here? If not, I'll close it and turn it over to the commission. Comments, questions, remarks? You're on.
I am. It's red. I never can figure out how this works. Well, I'm as excited as you are about it, and I think it's going to be good for the city, and I think it's going to be terrific press for us as well. So I'm hoping that it does pass, and when it does, I hope somebody will write a story and it will go out as a press release to the entire state. Are we going to be the first city to have some sort of ordinance in place with regard to dark skies?
I'm not sure specifically to dark skies. I know there's other cities that have similar type lighting ordinances, but specifically more geared to dark skies. I'm not quite sure about that.
Okay.
I'm not aware of any in the state of Missouri.
Yeah, I mean, you would. I think it's going to be beneficial to us, and I believe it will denote a certain value with regard to how we look at ourselves in this town. Also, I would just recommend that, I mean, the guy who knows a lot about the lighting is RJ, and he's a liaison from the council. And I've worked with RJ for a number of years on this, and we've talked about all types of equipment, gear, way to facilitate it, pricing and stuff like that. So I hope that the city will, I'm volunteering you to be the guy to talk to RJ about any possibilities he might have as an electrician with regard to to gear and that kind of thing, what we need. So, because I know that people want to know what is available to them and their options, and maybe he could help with regard to his expertise as an electrician in that regard. That's about it for me.
Anyone else? In that case, I would entertain a motion. We are making a motion to approve the dark sky ordinance that you have. Okay, based on the staff recommendations. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second? We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
John Miller. Jim Oaks,
Aye.
Alexi Capo.
Excellent, thank you. I want to comment on that a little bit more when we get into commission comments. Right now, we'll move on. Next up under discussion is the historic overlay district. Mr. Smith.
Yes, staff has brought back before the commission the historic overlay ordinance that is similar to what we have in place from before. What we have done is we have removed the reference to the commission and the CLG and is just looking at more of an overlay district as we had proposed before. Most of the verbiage other than those two items in the ordinance is the same as what was already there. So it does become more of an overlay district, to become more of an overlay for an administrative review and approval. The design guideline will still be in place as a reference document for staff to rely on as needed, along with the other city ordinances that are in place. Just was more of a discussion item tonight. If there are any comments, we'd be happy to investigate, add those, modify, make revisions. And then if not, then we will plan to bring this back to the commission for recommendation next meeting. Happy to answer any questions.
Comments? Thoughts?
You know, when this was first proposed, I was sort of against it because I thought that maybe the city couldn't do as good a job compliance of the ordinance and the guidelines as perhaps a commission. But then after some reflection and remembering what the commission was like when it was first installed and what has happened over the years, I came to the conclusion pretty quickly that maybe the city could do a much better job. Since the commission is made up of individuals who live here, and you know, sometimes they're going to be asked to bring their neighbors into some sort of compliance, which their neighbors may not want to be in. So if the city, having the law squarely behind it, if it's more teeth involved, and maybe we could get more compliance that would protect the universal integrity of the district, of which some of us have invested a lot of money and emotional equity over the years. So I slowly came to the conclusion that maybe the overlay with the city staff as a tip of the spear with regard to compliance was maybe, you know, probably the best way to go. But as a comment, then all I want to say is that sometimes the guidelines and the ordinance are in conflict. In my opinion, and some of this is very subjective. When you're dealing with guidelines, you're dealing with subjectivity, and the ordinance is an objective rule of law. So personally, I would like to see the staff review the ordinance with regard to how it affects the entire district, the historic district, which I believe is valuable, especially going forward now with what's happening in Ozark, and try to reduce the daylight between the ordinance itself and the guidelines. So the guidelines and the ordinance become more of the same thing. You're either in the district or you're not. And if you are, then the guidelines and the ordinance need to parallel each other in a very close way. So that would be my comment.
Any other discussion? Thoughts about this? The right thing to do? Comfortable with it? For me, I've watched this commission over the past 20 plus years, and it just always seems to have been a struggle.
Say again.
It's just always, it seems to have been a struggle, this commission. Sometimes it's almost impossible to get a quorum, which is the reason that we did this by bringing it over to the P and Z. I thought originally that was the right thing to do. But as John said, subsequently, I've come to realize that I think staff would do a much better job as well. Someone comes in, makes application, they meet with staff opens up a book and says, okay, there's the ordinance, so there's the design guideline. I'm not your neighbor. I don't care about, it's not that I don't care, but the emotional aspect of it isn't brought in. It's black and white. Where with the commission, sometimes the emotional aspect can sometimes be brought in. So for me, I think the right thing to do is to turn this over to staff and let them become trained. Let them have someone on call, on retainer as an expert when they run into a situation that they cannot answer or that they need some help on. And it seems like a win-win for everybody, the building owner, the homeowner, the business owner, and staff to have them doing this. So that's my 2 cents worth. You're still on, John. Oh, no, you're off.
I agree with that, and it simply follows that and come to a situation that is nuanced and we're going to do that because it's based on mistakes and things like that. These are emotional issues, and you can't legislate good taste, all that kind of stuff, or proper taste regarding these issues. And if you get to a place where there's some sort of nuanced problem, then I do think that bringing somebody else in from outside who's an expert in historic preservation is a great idea to solve that initial problem that you might be facing at the time. Takes a lot of load off the city, when you're ready out there to the corner, and it maintains the universal integrity of the district.
Very good. Anyone else? Okay, then we shall anticipate the ordinance coming to us
at the next meeting. And like I
Next
said, if you guys have specific comments and you want to send to us after this meeting, that'd be great. If you do see a conflict, as you mentioned, with the design guideline ordinance, please send those to us as well. And would look into that and implement those changes. And if we do make a modification, we will highlight so you guys see it at the next meeting.
Good deal. Okay, thank you. Commission comments. Anybody have anything they would care to add or discuss?
Chuck, would you mind enlightening me a little bit as far as what happened before? It sounds like it was brought to the Planning and Zoning Committee and now we're going to put it back. Was there a reason why it was going to be put to the Planning and Zoning Committee in the first place?
When the staff first presented the idea to remove the OHPC commission, there was on wanting to do that or not. The town that wanted to maintain the GLC, they wanted to maintain an historic commission somehow. So through negotiations and discussions, the idea was to float it over to the planning and zoning. Cameron and his staff did their due diligence with respect to the legalities of that with the state of Missouri. They found out that yes, we can in fact become both. We have to separate them, as you see now, where we are P and Z for one half of the meeting and OHPC for the other. But that was the reasoning for it, because originally it was to disband the commission completely and get rid of the GLC. So it was a test. In my opinion, it ended up being a test in futility. I don't think it worked as well as what we would hoped. I think that it hands down needs to be in the hands of the staff. So that's the reasoning behind it. This all happened about 1.5 years ago.
Gotcha.
From my mistake. Before COVID.
Yeah, it was around the Christmas or
Yeah.
winter. So yeah.
Yeah, does that answer your question, Wim?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, good deal. Any other comments? Well, I'm gonna go back to dark sky for a minute. I know Cameron is so happy that I do this. I think he pursued this ordinance just to get me to stop talking about it. And I just want to get on my soapbox real quick, because I know we got another thing that we want to talk about, but I really want this on the record. I've had the opportunity to be a part of 2 historically relevant situations in this town, programs in this town. First one was Main Streets. The second one is Dark Sky. Same thing happened. A group of people got together in the loft on the square with John and Catherine and 5 or 6 others, and we hashed out a plan to revitalize the downtown. No one thought we could do it. They thought we were crazy. We did do it. John was able to, with his connections, bring in some great investors and developers, and along with some of the others on the square, it is what it is today. And I'm really quite proud to have been part of that. This is equally as important in my mind. Same thing, 4 or 5, 6 of us met at a restaurant here 2-3 years ago, RJ, John, Catherine, and a few others, and we hashed out this plan for dark sky. And here we are getting ready to approve it at the city council level. 2 significant proposals for this town that is will be generationally impacted, in my opinion. And I could not be prouder to have been part of both of those projects. So that's all I got to say about that. Thank you for the time. Okay, administration comments.
I don't have anything to add.
Okay, if there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. We have a motion on the floor to adjourn. Do I have a second? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Good deal. Thank you. Go ahead and close that meeting out and open up the next. Okay, the Historic Preservation Commission meeting is now open for May the 24th, 2021. First thing on the agenda is the approval of minutes for the March 22nd, 2021 meeting. Everyone has had an opportunity to review. If there's any comments, questions, additions, or deletions, please state. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion on the floor. Sorry. We have a motion on the floor to approve the minutes. Do I have a second? Don't be shy. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Good deal. No scheduled visitors and guests, no unfinished business. We have one application under new business, and that is letter A. Location is 119 North 2nd Street. Applicant representative is Trey Watts. Owner is Ozark Square Investments LLC. Request COA for signage. Mr. Smith.
Yes, the applicant has 4 requests in the application tonight. And staff is asking for the commission to consider each one of these items individually when you vote. The first item are 3 parking signs that'll be on the 3rd Street side. These signs are more of just an FYI information for the tenants and parking. So these signs aren't necessarily identified in the ordinances or the design guidelines. The second item is some vinyl signage on the 2 doors facing 3rd Street. Again, these signs are more of an information type sign, non-advertising, just to let I guess customers, if you will, when they come to the business, that the entrance is actually around the corner. Again, these signs are more of a public information sign, not considering an advertising sign. And so staff didn't really see anything in the ordinances that would specifically address those signs. Third item is replacing the existing vinyl signage on the door on 2nd Street. In staff's review of that sign, staff did not see any issues with the reface of that sign. And with the refacing of the sign, generally there's not a permit outside of this ordinance that is required. The fourth item are 2 internally lit LED signs on 3rd Street. These signs were identified in the packet, I believe maybe a year ago, May, when they were looking at the electrical. At that time, they identified 2 signs with that made representation of 2 different businesses. I do want to point out that in the design guideline, it does mention about internally lit signs are generally not an acceptable practice with the historic ordinance. But in the sign reference to the C4, the historic ordinance doesn't have any specific criteria about signage, but it does make reference to the sign ordinance and the C4 ordinance. In C4, we did highlight in your packet, no external wall signage shall be made of channel lettering with the exception of the front buildings immediately adjacent to 3rd Street. So it does give some clarification about the 3rd Street side. External wall signs may only be illuminated by external lighting with the exception of those wall signs on the front of the buildings facing 3rd Street. And then the next item, wall-mounted cabinet or container signs are not allowed within this district. So it does give some specific requirements about cabinet signs. Generally, in the historic overlay district and the signage, they would be more of a lettering type sign or just a flat panel and not a cabinet structure. And then in addition to that, wall signs, each business is allowed to have 1 wall sign. So that's one thing staff noted is looking at the prior packet before that representation provided appear to advertise two different businesses as a representation, but in this case, these two signs will be advertising what we felt as one business. And then only external lighting may be illuminated on any wall except for the signs facing Third Street. So again, it makes note to external lighting only except for the Third Street side. With that, happy to answer any questions, and we do have a representative from the application in the audience.
Okay, good deal. Mr. Healy, did you care to add anything to Mr. Smith's comments?
My name's David Healy, live at 3512 North Ledgestone, Ozark, Missouri. Thank you for taking this up tonight. Appreciate your time. So I think the only thing I really want to convey is obviously we're looking for something that's going to be kind of consistent with what I foresee is coming down the street as far as other improvements, other buildings being built. As far as it being lit, I understand that could potentially be an issue. This is only going to be on the side, as Mr. Smith just described, facing Third Street, not on the square. So it's going to be internally lit, facing Third Street, just like our Springfield competitor sign just right down the street from us, who just put that sign in. And I think that's kind of a little bit of relevance here that Springfield law firm moves to town and they have a lit sign on Third Street, throw a rock and hit their building. We just like to keep up with the competition, I guess. That's only fair. Anybody have any questions for me?
We'll get back to that part. I just want to make sure if you had any additions.
No,
to what
I've got
Mr.
this
Smith said.
podium and took my chance here, so.
Okay, well, that's what you're supposed to do. Come up
Yeah.
and
If you have any
give us your
questions,
side of that story, and then we'll open and close public, turn it over to the commission. And if we have any questions, we'll bring you back up.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so I will open and obviously close the public hearing. No one else came on Zoom. Okay, then I'll turn it over to the commission. Comments, no questions. Let's do this. Let's have some overall comments if you want to make some overall comments, or we can, when we get ready to take these one at a time, we can comment on each one of them as we go. So we're not repeating ourselves or jumping around. What would you prefer? Or does it matter to you? Okay, so no overall comments, you're just ready to jump right into it. Okay, so the very first one, as Mr. Smith alluded to, and there are copies of the signs in your packet, is 3 parking signs facing Third Street. These signs are not specifically defined. These are about employees, parking only. It has nothing to do with the name on the side of the business or the arrow. It's the employee parking only signs are what we're talking about right now. Is that correct, Mr. Smith?
That's correct.
Okay, and you'll notice there are actually 2. There's an employee entrance, client entrance on the square. There's an employee entrance again, client entrance on the square, and then parking for Appleby Healy, attorney at law only. Those are the signs for the number 1. Is that correct?
The ones for item number 1 are only
The one right there. Okay,
The one
I stand
on the screen, yeah.
corrected.
Yeah.
It's the one. It's that one right there. That's number 1
3.
right there.
There's 3 of them, and on the screen, you'll see there's one right here, one here, and then one down here, similar to what you'd see for like an ADA accessible type sign for parking, something similar to that. I believe they're wall mounted on the building, yes.
Replacing signs.
Okay. Any comments on this particular sign? Okay, then let's take them one at a time. I'll entertain a motion for number 1. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to approve 3-panel parking sign facing Third Street. Signs are not specifically defined. Do I have a second? We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
John Miller.
Aye.
Glenn Oaks.
Aye.
Lexi Powell. Pete Greenberg.
Excellent, good deal. Okay, number 2, vinyl signage on 2 doors facing Third Street. These signs are non-advertising signs, are more of a public information sign. The ones up on the screens right now. Comments, questions? Questions for the applicant regarding this? If not, I would entertain a motion. Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve the vinyl signage of the two doors facing Third Street. Do we have a second? Okay, a motion on the floor and a second. Roll call vote, please.
John Miller. Lynn Oaks.
Aye.
Elvis Pavlov.
Aye.
Pete Rittenberg.
Excellent. Number 3, replacing the existing vinyl signage on the door and the window facing Second Street. Comments? Questions for the applicant? Or staff? Then I'd entertain a motion. We have a motion on the floor to approve, to replace the existing vinyl signage on the door, the window facing Second Street. Do we have a second? A motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
John Miller.
Aye.
Lynn Oaks.
Aye.
Elvis Pavlov.
Aye.
Pete Rittenberg.
Okay, good deal. Okay, number 4, 2 internally lit LED signs facing Third Street. As Mr. Smith pointed out, even though the design guidelines recommend that we do not put illuminated signs in the downtown area, the code does not indicate that. The code indicates that in this particular case, because it's facing Third Street, they are legal, the aspect of them being illuminated. The question becomes the number of signs. I think as we see up there, there are actually 2. One indicates Appleby Healy Law Firm, and the other one is an arrow that says on the square. So that would not be in compliance, if I'm not mistaken, for the one wall sign ordinance. Am I correct with that, Mr. Smith?
That is correct.
Okay, so we have a couple of options. Mr. Haley, do you have any comments about the fact that the ordinance indicates only one sign? And if,
I can tell you with the history, kind of how this turned into 2 signs. That helps with anybody. I mean, the building actually got where that red line is. There's a firewall right there. And it is, at least in my mind, a potential at some point, we're gonna be building a new building and we potentially might lease this out into 2 different areas. That's kind of the idea of having signage available for both potential tenants down the road. So while we're doing all the remodel, construction, putting power up and light bars up for 2 sets of signs was kind of the original design idea that Appleby Healy being where they're presently located may not be where we're at in 5 or 6 years. And we might have different tenants in there sharing the building at that point. Who probably both like have exterior signage on. So
Okay.
that's kind of the idea of how we got to this point.
well, that is sound logic. I think the question is going to come back to the ordinance that indicates only one sign per building, I think, even though your argument, it makes logical sense.
Sure.
When you boil it down to an ordinance that says one sign, one building, one business, that's a question that we're going to have to get past.
Understood.
Any comments from the commission? Yes, John.
What is the purpose of the arrow?
I'm going to say, especially clients coming from Springfield, somewhere between 15-20% come and pull in the back door. Google Earth consistently, or Google Maps consistently reroutes everybody to our back door. And probably about every 90 days, we do an update with Google Maps, tell them no, the front doors on the business doors on 2nd Street. And then they flip it back about 90 days later. We have a lot of people come to that back door. We're trying to direct the traffic to the square.
And that arrow is going to be internally lit?
It could be,
It's
the
gotta be
plan,
internally
that's
lit.
right.
Is the Appleby Healy sign internally lit as well?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Well, I can just tell you that we have a number of boutiques in our buildings and people find them because the square is the square. People know where it is. If they don't know, they'll find out. I mean, you're not advertising walk-ins. I mean, people, they come to see you have appointments.
Right.
And they're going to know where the address is. And obviously, this building, regardless of maybe the fact that one wall faces Third, is still an historic building. It's squarely, no pun intended, in the district, in the historic district. So I just wonder about the conflict between the design guidelines and the ordinance that somehow exempts third, and that's kind of what I was talking about before. To me, there's a real conflict there. You either are protecting the universal integrity of the district, or you're just trying to advertise a business on the square like you would in a mall. To me, that, no offense, but it would work in a strip center or, someplace else, but I'm not so sure that, this is just my opinion. This is very subjective. Sure. That's the problem with, that's why sometimes you need someone to come in from an historic preservation perspective to help us understand it. I'm not that person. At the same time, just down the street are bail bonds, and they're lit up at night with neon and.
Right down the street. That's what I do, lit up in neon. I mean, just 100 feet down the street from me. And that's what I'm looking at. It's like, wow.
I understand. Okay. I don't know who that well, okay, but.
Well, and back to, it might surprise you. You said in my office, when people come in, the first thing they complain to me about is it took me forever to find you. I couldn't find you. They had no signage up. And that's what kind of prompted the discussion. Well, people come down 3rd Street and they know we're on the square, but they don't know where to turn. I think if you're from around here, it's pretty obvious, but when it's new clients coming from Springfield, Republic, Marshfield, they get lost. And that's what we're trying to help alleviate.
Right. But if I'm coming to see you or David Appleby, I'm going to be looking for their name, and I can see that on the name sign, but I don't know, for some reason, it's hard for me to make that leap. And then if it's internally lit, then that falls in to being outside of the guidelines with regard to cabinet signs. To me, those are cabinet signs.
Right.
But now I realize, you're an attorney, so you're going to know what the ordinance means.
Right.
Right.
I think on 3rd Street, there's a difference. And that's obviously what we're asking for here.
Yeah.
But I understand your point. I mean,
Yeah,
we
the
want
point
to
is
be
trying
neighbors.
to protect the integrity of the entire district,
Right.
as opposed to just being able to do whatever we want on 3rd. There are only a few blocks there of buildings that back up. This is the back of your building,
Right.
that back up to 3rd. So it's just a matter of being sensitive to that fact, I think, more than anything else. That's why, when the ordinance is so important, to have it be black and white and not so nuanced, which is exactly what we're talking about, which I think the overlay, where the staff becomes completely in control, we're getting off into the weeds here with the other issue, but if the staff is in control, they can actually enforce that, where sometimes the commission just can't, because it's neighbor against neighbor, and it's, so that's my comment, and forgive me if I've stepped on any toes.
I think it's all fair.
I think your argument about a competitor down the street, I'm assuming in the Estes building,
Yes.
okay, that has an illuminated sign on 3rd Street. I'm not sure that's the concern that we're having. The concern is the 2 signs.
Okay.
The fact of the matter is the ordinance says you can have an illuminated sign on 3rd Street. There's no argument there. There's nothing that we or anyone else can do about that except change the ordinance. Well, right now that is the law of the land. So that's not a problem. The problem is the law of the land is 1 sign, 1 building. So, and it's not up to us to determine which one of those signs that you want. And I'm assuming that when we get ready to do a motion here, the motion will read 1 sign. That's going to be up to you moving forward, which sign you prefer.
Well, and just to, further expand on this, there's 2 separate addresses for that building right there you're looking at. Each of those doors have a separate mailing address. For years, our title company received the mail at 109 3rd Street, and the law firm's at 119 2nd Street. 109 3rd Street's the door on the far left right there underneath on the square. If we go back to the 2-tenant situation, that's what we're going to have, is somebody's going to have a street address, 109 3rd Street, and the other tenant's going to be 119 2nd Street.
Sure.
And that was really kind of the idea. So I understand what you're saying as far as, if one person rents out multiple pieces of a larger building, does that mean they have to take all the signs down, just have 1, or do they get to maintain?
Per business.
Yes, per business.
1 sign per business.
In this case,
So-
there's 1 business, correct? It's not
Right.
Healy.
You're right. Yeah, so the title company's out of there.
Right.
I mean, I think if I was gonna be creative, I could put an arrow on the Appleby Healy sign, and make 1 sign. That seems a little tacky to me.
Yeah.
I think this looks nicer. This is gonna be on the bar, that on the square sign comes down, another sign can go up some other day real easy. I'm certainly open to discussion on the matter. I understand what you're saying, that
You know, it's the same thing with regards to the Third Street situation. The ordinance specifically states you're allowed to do it. Well, in this case, the ordinance specifically states that you're not allowed to put more than one sign on. So, I mean, that's all I'm going by. You know, I support well, I don't know that I necessarily support the illuminated sign part, you know, because I'm a more of a historical, accurate kind of a guy, but I can't, I mean, we can't stop it because the ordinance stipulates that you're allowed to do that. Same ordinance that stipulates that you're only allowed to have one sign. So I understand your argument that down the road, you may rent that piece out. You may have to have a second one. At that time, that person will have to come back before the staff if we turn this into an overlay district and make application for that second sign.
Okay.
So that would probably be my argument, or at least my discussion back to you. You know, if we're going to stick to, yes, you're allowed because Third Street, no, you're not allowed because the ordinance says one sign per. I guess that's my point.
Fair enough.
I hope that makes sense.
It does.
Yes, John.
You know, with the LCRA property, you know, I know something's going to be coming in there. You know, we've heard a number of things. I have friends who are looking at it and so forth and so on. We couldn't have some signage there that points to the historic Ozark Square, some really tasteful thing. I mean, that would solve a lot of problems with regard to how to get to the square. And I agree with Chuck. It's just sort of the two signs on one building, both illuminated. Anyway, that's sort of, so maybe down the road that could be corrected and everybody wins if it's done in the right way. It takes them away from across the street. That might solve all these little issues. What do you think of that? Something.
Sure. Anybody else have anything they care to add to this?
It's just a printed metal sign. There's no illumination on the front of it.
And you currently already have signs directional signs directing people around to the front, and they still try to open up the back doors?
Well, currently on those back doors, it says employees only.
Okay.
And yeah, they pull on the doors regardless. Sometimes I just walk in the building, look
can't
around.
Can't imagine.
Because nobody really appears to read those.
Sure.
But
Anybody else care to?
I mean, honestly, if
discussion.
Google Maps would help me out a little bit, that is our primary battle. You go to Google Maps, I send everybody to our back door. It's constantly resetting. People who haven't been here before, they follow Google Maps, they're at the back door. That's
I
what
can see how that would be a pain.
It's a tremendous pain.
I can see that.
Yes.
Okay, anybody else have anything they care to add to this? Anything else you care to add, Mr.
No.
Keeling? Okay, then I'm going to need a motion that is going to, obviously, because it is an ordinance issue. The one illuminated sign, and of course, we're not delineating which one is which. That's up to you. But I do think a motion needs to be made to only have one sign on that building, and they can determine whatever sign they prefer to put up. That staff okay with that?
I'm fine with that, or what I would add is if you clarify the motion in more detail, what you are approving or denying too. There's a way of maybe addressing the illumination and the number of signs. What I'm saying is if in that motion, if you want to clarify even additional information such as the one sign versus in the illumination, you can tie that all into that one motion as well. Just to clarify if you are approving or denying specific components to this item number 4.
Okay, so do we actually need to break these apart? Or just make a motion that says we approve one illuminated sign on 3rd Street?
That's what I would recommend.
Okay, then that's what we need, is a motion that says that we are going to approve one illuminated sign on the Appleby Healy building facing 3rd Street. That's the motion that I need.
No offense, but I would love to approve one sign that's not illuminated internally. I know I can't do that, but just so you'll know, you know, with nice crooknecks or something, that it would comply, sort of fit, you know, and forgive me. That's just, you know, after all these 25 years here working for this, that's kind of where I am with it. And I know it sounds offensive. I don't mean it to be at all. I love what you've done to the building. you know, big fan of David Appleby's. So Cameron, I'm gonna try to make this motion. I make the motion that we approve the Appleby Healy illuminated sign that faces Third Street for the Appleby Healy Law Firm. And I make the motion that we deny the illuminated cabinet arrow sign. Based on the fact.
Do we need to go that far? Do we just really need to say that we approve one sign on the side of the building?
That's what I would recommend, and they can determine how they want their one sign, if that is the issue.
Okay.
And then, but in the motion, I would clarify if there was a concern of the internally lit versus externally lit sign. Just to clarify, if you are approving the sign as they've proposed, internally lit.
I don't know if I can do that. I mean, so I'm proposing that we have one sign that's internally lit, correct?
I guess my question would be, is that what you want your motion to be? I guess
The ordinance says it's allowed.
Yes.
So
I know it's allowed. I know.
So let me ask this. So
doesn't mean you have to make the motion, John.
you know, we've addressed.
Maybe somebody else can make the motion. It would be much easier than for me trying to figure this out. I mean, I'm already having this little battle in my brain about it to begin with, so.
So one concern is the one sign. So I could see, and not to put a motion in your guys' mouth, the motion to approve one sign on that building. And then in that motion, you can clarify, is that sign internally or externally lit?
I make a motion that we approve one sign on the Third Street facing elevation of the Healy Law Firm, David Appleby Law Firm building. And I make the motion that that one sign be externally lit to comply with the design guidelines of the Ozark Historic District.
Okay, so that the commission understands, he's making a motion to change the application. Okay, his motion is that he wants the sign to be not illuminated. Well, the application is illuminated. The ordinance says illuminated, just so that you all understand, okay, where we're at here. So if he's made that motion, then someone needs to second that motion, not approving that sign, but John's motion to deny the application and to make a recommendation that we have a non-illuminated sign. That's what we need a second. Is that correct? Am I good on that?
It could be illuminated, but not internally illuminated.
You know that
I'm getting the cabinet sign is what I want to see go.
If his motion is seconded and it's voted approved, then it's finished. That's it. And so what staff can approve is one sign that's externally lit on that building and nothing else needs to happen.
That's right. Someone has to second his motion, though. Well, we have to take care of this motion first. So someone will need to second it. If there's no second, then we'll move on to a secondary motion.
It'll die with
It'll
lack
die
of second.
without a second. So if there is no second on John's motion, I'm assuming there's not a second. Not hearing one.
I will second it.
Okay, so when you're seconding John Dillon's motion to deny interior illuminated light, one sign illuminated internally versus an exterior illumination, is that correct? Okay, so I have a motion on the floor, and a second, roll call vote to approve John's motion.
John Dillon,
Aye.
Ben Oaks,
Aye.
Just say name.
Alexi Pavlov,
Nay.
Pete Renfro.
Aye. Okay. So now this will go on to the Board of Aldermen and,
No,
no,
OHPC
oh, HPC,
stops.
that's right, stops right here.
So
Okay,
now staff can, we'll get with you to sign the certificate of appropriateness.
okay,
And then staff can proceed with permitting the signs as the motion's clarified.
very good. What else do we have to talk about on OHPC? Any discussion from the commission, any discussion from staff?
Staff has no additional comments.
Okay, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Motion on the floor to adjourn. Do I have a second? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Thank you. That's it. Thank you all.
So that was an aye on internally. Is that correct? So the sign that was approved, one sign is determined the external.